My name is Maria. I am at home now in North Carolina. I've lived here for a while, 20-something years. I grew up in Ukraine. You can hear my accent. And I've been doing natural math, that's my company, for 25 plus years. So we organize math circles with joyful mathematics. We publish books, books for math circles, for family mathematics. And this here is an interview Creative Commons Foundation did with me, because all our books, all natural math books are Creative Commons, which means you have free access to their PDF forms. You can share, translate, anything. And we also do some research and development, game development and consulting for places like NASA, and help write different stories for different folks. And of course, we help to organize wonderful events like this one, and do different outreach and community events. So one thing we do is Math Storytelling Day. It's on September 25th. And on that day, people share wonderful math stories. So today we have September and July, and we're going to write some stories together. And hopefully we will write something, maybe share for the storytelling day. So Brianna said the helpful things about slides, and I will actually stop sharing slides as soon as I figure out how. There we are. Because it's time to play together, and for our play we need paper. So we only have a few participants here, and I'm going to just invite everyone to speak together. Okay, so I like to share things with people and to see faces. So paper, let's grab up some paper, and let us. You can have colored paper, white paper, recycled paper, any paper. Okay, and some scissors, your favorite scissors. I have large scissors, and I have small, tiny scissors for small holes. Okay, for cutting tiny things. So here we are, and here we go. Let us make a snowflake. And it will go into stories, I promise. But first we'll make a snowflake, because stories come from activities. We do something and then the stories happen. We have to make the world before we can make the story. So let's just fold our paper in two. And you might have made snowflakes before or not. Doesn't matter. Let's just make it happen. And then fold it in two again. One of those corners is the global middle of your paper. And by that I mean, if you open it up, this here corner is where the middle of the paper is. So I'm gonna hold it by that middle. You can kind of see it if you look at it sideways, where the flaps are and where they aren't. So holding it by that middle corner, we're going to fold through the middle one more time. And that's a tricky fold. And so doing this with young children is tricky, but they enjoy it once they learn, because now it's not going to line up anymore. I'm going to fold like this. And it's not going to line up because geometry. Because we folded and the sides are different, but we folded them together to join as one, and they're different lengths. And here we are, and we have this extra piece. And I am going to start cutting, yay. And now interesting choices start to happen. And the interesting choices that start to happen, now this is all about interesting choices. All about interesting choices, because the first interesting choice is you can just cut off that flap at the bottom. Or you can cut through all the layers in a fancy line and make it wavy or zigzag or anything. So I'm going to do with a fancy line, and I never know how it comes out, and you can make different choices like this. So that's not a snowflake yet, but it will be. Because now we can start cutting little pieces off. And you may be an experienced snowflake maker. And in any case, you can cut, and that's where I got smaller scissors, but large work too. So the simplest cut, and that's what I teach children first, is you make a straight cut like this, straight through, and then you meet it from the other end, and that's your little triangle. Now, amazingly, a lot of people, even older children, don't know how to hold scissors. If they struggle, tell them open wide, stick your paper all the way in, and push, and don't have your fingers anyway in the way.
I'm going to go get a bigger scissor because I actually started with cardboard paper, which is a big mistake. I'll be right back.
Okay. So we can make this triangle. You can make relatively easy. You can make a curly cut. So something like that is also doable. And of course, you can make cuts on top of cuts. So I made a curly one here. And now I'm going to make a little triangle on top of that. And you can make several cuts on top of one cut and combine them. So that's an interesting choice, what shape they are. And it always comes out interesting, whatever you do. And success. Yes. Scissor friends. Okay. Yep. So one question people sometimes start wondering, what shape will come of that? And some children like to open it right away and see what shape this makes. So I'm going to do that, and mine made this weird, I don't know, star, I guess. And some people don't want to open anything, and they want to just see it to the end. Yeah. So and you got a thinner paper. That's an interesting choice. What kind of paper you have, what comes of it. And you can, of course, make very fancy, different shaped cuts. And that creates all kinds of snowflakes. You can cut out letters, geometric shapes, organic shapes. And then you can ask yourself, well, what's going to happen when I open that thing finally? That's a surprise and wonder of it. What kind of snowflake will I make this time? I love making them. I make them all the time. And yet it's always a joy. They are different every time. So for stories, that's what we do. We start with activities. People say, oh, write about what you know. But it's not like that. You do something and it sparks stories. You write inspired by what you do. And it may inspire something totally different. You never know. But doing a thing helps. So I promised symmetry, and there is no symmetry yet whatsoever. Look at this. Mine is very asymmetric, but it will, of course, magically appear. So I am going to wait for you to finish, and then we'll open them together.
It's funny how often that word has come up in all of these math workshops, the word symmetry. How many times that we've looked at a problem and said, oh, wait, there's symmetry there. And it's interesting that you chose that word and that, that concept today, because it really is a big part of math.
It's one of those foundational things, really deep in every, even in logic, even in something like algebra, in every part of mathematics, there is some sort of symmetry in there. And so we're going to see what sort of symmetry happens to us today with snowflakes. So, Kim, looks like, are you about to open yours?
Sure.
Okay, let's watch.
It looks like a person.
Mask. That is so cool.
It's hard to take apart, and I don't want to break it.
Sometimes I think children are too afraid to be creative because they want to know that it's going to turn out perfect.
So this is a very good point. And this is something we should say again and again and again about stories. So what we want to do. Okay, look at that though.
That's really cool.
It is beautiful. Isn't it interesting? What do you like about it, Kim?
Well, I like the big diamond pattern right in the middle.
The diamond pattern.
And I like that you can hold it like this or like this. And it looks different depending on how you hold it.
Doesn't it really, like, you notice different things if you turn it sideways a bit? Mm-hmm. It's a magical thing. It's not always like that. I really like how the middle part seems almost round, but the entire structure is squarish. Mm-hmm. So there is this shapes within shapes. And the layers going out. This is very mandala-like. Mm-hmm. It's unfolding. So perfection. I think a lot of people have misconceptions about stories and writing. Like they imagine a writer, a professional one, a good one, right? Sitting down and writing the book entirely, or at least a chapter, maybe editing it slightly. And nothing can be, I mean, this is so not like that for anyone, not for anyone. The trick is to spend a lot of time with it. And that's what we are doing now. We're spending time doing beautiful things for our story. So I'm going to open mine. I don't know what comes of it, but some symmetry. And so this is mirror symmetry so far. It's just two sides like our faces or so many things in the world. But it doesn't stop at mirror symmetry. Stop. It keeps going. And so it has this shapes turn into shapes. And I made something. Mine, somehow it reminds me of a rug my grandfather had. Big, old, very elaborate rug with different shapes on it. Very symmetric too. So these guys have rotational symmetry as they go around. And we can fold paper. So far we had a simple fold, 2 and 2 and 2. But we can fold, Victoria, are you opening?
I tried to copy your star, but it came out looking like a Pokemon.
It does! How wonderful. Check it out. They're always different, all of them.
It's kind of stuck.
This is a difficult part. Give it a minute. Because
I know, I'm like trying to rush it, right? There we go. Okay. Voila. Okay. Ta-da!
wow.
Beautiful.
Check it out, though. I have 4 of those shapes, and you
Yeah, it's
have,
coming off of you. Yeah, with the star, these guys, right?
but you have 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you're right.
Amazing, Kim. And you have 4 by 4, but you have 8 diamonds.
8 diamonds and 4 of these guys. I don't know what they are.
How come? That's interesting. Okay. So that depends on folding and how you make things happen. And I think you had, Victoria, didn't you have 2? And so you fold it again. So you fold it into 1,
2, 3, and then 4.
4. Ah.
Yeah.
So you had an extra symmetry, and that makes it harder to cut, but fancier in the design, and that's different too. So you had an extra line of symmetry through the middle too, go in different way. Wow, that's amazing.
When you speak about the symmetry, what children have you done this with? What age group?
I've done it with ages starting about 2-year-olds and up.
Oh, really?
With the 2-year-olds, you want to have, they usually doodle and you cut for them, because scissors for most of them is a struggle, or else they can hold your hand and guide your hand, like they are guiding you and you are cutting. And also with 2-3-year-olds, I like to have gigantic paper, like a wrapping paper. And so you fold and you cut large shapes. Everything with toddlers, large is better. So they have that snowflake about the size of them, and they can touch it and they can trace it, and the fine motor skills is not as much of an issue. It's beautiful, and young children understand. They can guess. We can play guessing games, and of course they get pretty good at it. Even at young age, you can guess what shape will it make, and they start making puzzles for you. A child can fold something, so I'm folding and folding twice, and then we can play this guessing puzzle. Like I'm cutting this shape, right? It's beautiful, and it's like a teardrop shape. So what shape will it make when I open this? And you can ask a young child.
And do they know it's a heart? Have they seen it before, or do they just know what it's?
Some children, and that's an interesting choice too. So the interesting choice is, do they like to guess even, or do they not? And that's where. So interesting choices. I want to put this slide up for interesting choices. So the interesting choices, like, Victoria, do you want to guess this, or do you want me to open and see? I can ask. I'll pretend you are 4 right now, and you can say what you want.
I want to guess.
Okay, what's your guess?
Very long, squishy heart.
very long, squishy heart. And how many will there be when I open it?
Oh,
Let's a guess. Do you want to guess or do you want to wait and see?
I'm going to guess 1.
Okay, so I'm going to open it. And surprise, I actually folded paper more than you guessed. And here it is. Now, of course, if I fold paper again, I can cut something else and see, okay, what if I do this? What shape will this make? I just made this cut off the corner here. So what shape will this cut make at the top? That's an interesting. And how many will there be? Oh, we have Dilip here. More math friends. Dilip, I am inviting everyone to be on stage just because. Hi.
I had trouble finding your link. It was missing for a long time.
Tragic. But you made it. Thank you. Okay, so there are more cards and yours are less squishy. We are playing a guessing game. So I folded paper, A4 paper, and the guessing is what shape will this make up top when I cut off the top and when I open my paper. So everybody's like, let's wait and see. So I'm starting to open it. That's a heart and that's a diamond and just one of it. But yeah, and here we are playing with snowflakes. And then children want to make fancy snowflakes. They want to say, oh, how do I make it look snowflake-like? How do you make it look really weird? So I start to offer them more interesting choices. So I just fold it the same way. What if you cut it, this first cut, what if you cut it really short on one end, but really long on the other end? So I'm going to make this line now that is really going short on one end and all the way diagonally on the other end. So what kind of shape will that make? And what kind of snowflake can you make with that? So it's very skinny. And I'm going to make some holes in it just for fun and then open. So I'm making the quick triangular holes. They will all be kind of the same-ish, but we'll see. And so if you open something like that, of course, the first mirror symmetry happens, but then rotational starts to happen. And you create something very star-like in nature. What I like about this one is how long it is from the middle. And you see the ray structure more. Okay, let us play some writing games now. So where does writing come in? I would like, some people like to think from, okay, and I'm inviting everyone on stage, whoever comes. So I'm inviting Ethan on stage as well. Okay, hi. Okay, hi Ethan.
Yeah.
We are everyone on stage and we just made some snowflakes. Hey, Kim and Victoria, show some of your snowflakes, please.
Oh, you folded it up. Hold on.
Yeah, now you get to unfold it again.
Do you think this helps with visuospatial recognition, or would it not be related?
Tell us more.
Well, like, when you stack cubes and you create a tower, and then you ask a child, if there's blocks behind, let's say, a tower behind, and you ask a child, how many blocks are there? Kind of like a visuospatial understanding of how things work, because we're talking about symmetry and reflection and lots of things. I feel like that maybe when kids are cutting snowflakes, they're not really thinking about. And it just makes me think of physiospatial exercises.
They are, and children naturally arrive at them when they want to make something particular. Like, oh, how do you make a star? How do you make a heart? Can you make this? Can you make that? So children really do come up with these different ways of thinking about it.
That reminds me of is counting, because this year I taught, among other grades, I taught second grade, and but even more for first grade, the notion of counting, and by cutting out, you can then start looking at groups of 4 if you fold it twice and start kind of grouping so that you can count in a more efficient manner.
That's very true, and you can get to a lot of topics from it. Whatever your inspiration, some people like this grouping, multiplication, and some people go into spatial reasoning, shapes, and how it rotates, how it transforms in space. It's a rich activity. So Math Storytelling Day is in September, and we are going to start writing stories to prepare for the holiday, and let's see what happens. So I am going to share a book that Natural Math published called Funwheel Adventures. So Funwheel Adventures is a book. Funwheel stands for functions. So it starts where 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. It's by Fradkin and Bishop, 2 writers, and Sasha and Allison. When 2 children go down a rusty and supposedly evil, but maybe not, magic slide on a dare, they arrive in a different land where everything is different, even their playground. There are elephants and different play equipment. And then they start meeting people who have powers. One person turns everything into purple elephants. Another person makes everything tiny, just shrinks whatever. Well, here is a poor guy, Leo is his name, who shrunk to a ladybug size. That can be changed because another Funwheelian makes things large, and so things grow. Then there are Funwheelians who, let me see more. There are Funwheelians who duplicate things. So somebody tried to make more shoes and they duplicated the left shoe, which didn't quite work for that purpose. There are 2 shoes, but they're not quite comfortable. And then there are Funwheelians, they wanted to balance the doll. And somebody's power was making things heavier, so they made one leg of the doll heavier, and then the doll balanced perfectly. So Funwheelians have different powers. A Funwheelian has a power, a function for grown-ups. For children, a power. And I'd like to invite you as a prompt. Think of your snowflakes or someone else's snowflakes if you haven't made one yet. And think of a character, of a person that has a power, a Funwheelian who has some sort of snowflake power. you can give them a name, or you can imagine them. Different people like different things. So start designing your character. Just think of a person, creature, anything, and think of a power that's snowflake related. I'll stop talking for a couple of minutes, let you think. So, would anyone like to share their character concept? Anything. Go for it, Ethan.
Sure. Sure. Came up with someone who tends to walk on either their hands or their feet, or one hand and one foot, and their power is rotation. They can rotate an object by multiples of various degrees.
Okay. Dilip, what's your character idea?
So I was thinking of floating. And so from a child's perspective, or from anybody's perspective, the more you cut, the hypothesis would be the more you would float because you're lighter. That would be a fun hypothesis to try. And so maybe in a story, this object, which is a snowflake, is trying to go from a high place to a low place and wants to do it without getting hurt.
Oh, interesting. Kim, would you like to share an idea?
Yes, so it reminded me of when I was younger and I had an idea of what my snowflake should look like, and it never looked like that. I had such a hard time making the snowflake look the way that I wanted it to look. And so my snowflake power is you tell the person what you want the snowflake to look like, and then that person has the power to cut the snowflake the way that you want it to look like. And it did remind me of the fold and cut workshops, because we talked about, we started there cutting stars, and how do you cut a star with one cut, and are there limits on the shapes that you can make with one cut? And it turns out if you fold it correctly, there are no limits. And so
that's very magical.
Yeah, it's very yeah. So I'll draw the shape, and then you fold it and cut it so that it makes the shape that I want it to.
So that's the superpower in the story. You make that happen. Whatever you envisioned, it happens. Okay, Victoria, what are you thinking about?
I just keep thinking of the stars. So I don't know, like I was trying to watch the ISS the other day in the sky, and it's so hard because there's so much light pollution. And so in my mind, I kept thinking of the stars and the clusters that you could create. And maybe the superpower would be, being able to create stars that go back into our skies and, add those constellations back in. I don't know. I like what Kim said, though.
We can have our characters interact in the same world. So we are math friends, and it's a lot of joy to create story worlds together where you allow your writer colleagues and math friends to borrow your characters. Of course, you'll have to talk to Kim about that. One assumes for the purpose of this, children do not become possessive of their characters, rarely. They share, and so if you're doing it like that, you can say, hey, Kim, can I borrow your character or concept for my story? And they can interact. So the two of you can even get together and role play a piece of story. Mm-hmm. Oh, Dilip has another idea. Tell us more, Dilip.
Well, the idea is this opens up the imagination, especially for first, second, even third and fourth graders, where looking at the new school year, presumably all or some of it will be virtual. And so by making stories like this, that frees them up. They can't be with their friends. They can't touch their friends. And so they can use the paper, the story, and the things they're making to enact that kind of relationship. So that might be interesting. And it also, beyond that, some students are numbers averse, and they start kind of behind to start with, and they feel that math is not for them. And so this could be a bridge, a magical bridge to get them to become friends and realize that numbers are there for them. So that could be a nice connection too.
With stories, that's what the interesting choice, a lot of it is about. It's choice and voice. When you pick a character, it's yours. So stories. Okay, and here is the trick. The stories come when you spend time with it and keep building on it. So, and even if you can ask some questions that are not necessarily mathematical right away, but they will get back to it. So, you know who your powers are. Now, think about your characters and write a couple of details about them. And you can think of anything, a name, maybe snowflake related or your power related, like Shira, where glimmer is glimmers and bow shoots a bow. Or it can be something else. Can be fantastical. We are making fantastical stories. How do they look like? Is it symmetry related to your powers? What's in their room? If they are on Zoom, what would people see? Or maybe they have a virtual background. If they have a party, what would they celebrate at the party? So just think of 2 or 3 things about your characters. I'll give you a couple of minutes. All right. Has anyone discerned any facts about their characters? Okay. Dilip put some ideas in chat. So we can read that. Victoria, do you have a couple of facts about yours? Maybe one?
No, not yet. Sorry. Still working on it.
Okay.
Writer's block.
Oh, okay. So facts do not have to be profound. And so you can think of how do they look? What do they eat? What's in their room? What was the last thing they did? This is a game. Usually people play with 20 facts. We're not going to do 20 because of time limit. But we can just think of any random thing. The trick is to not judge. We're not comparing. We're not writing a bestseller. We are coming up with random, inconsequential things. As silly, mundane as you can make it.
So I'm thinking of the what's it called, The Incredibles, the superheroes. I like those. And so somebody who is wears a white sort of superhero suit with white boots and blue and carries a very large pair of scissors and has a nice white cape flowing out behind. And
you imagine that whole superhero get up with accessories.
Oh, yes. All of it.
Beautiful. Dilip's character wears a new hat every day. Ethan, do you have something about yours?
Yeah, I put it into the chat. I decided her name is Ava because we've got some rotational symmetry in the name with the A's and V's. Yeah, right now, so my younger daughter has been reading a lot of Little Mister and Little Miss books. So that's kind of the mental picture I have in terms of kind of building a character.
Okay. So that's beautiful. And when the younger the children you get, the weirder things get. So if you do this with 5-year-olds, they'll have a magic flying rainbow unicorn who's also an astronaut and partially robot because they like all those things. And they'll have magical adventures in the first 5 minutes of this activity. But not with some people. Sometimes it's a writing block. So, Victoria, are you How are you faring? Okay. So Victoria is working. Oh, have a name. Oh, Victoria's story has a feeling to it. It's beautiful and melancholy, and it has a feeling. It's that feeling. So some people start writing from a feeling. The feeling of, well, the stars, where are the stars in the sky? And it's a complex feeling right away. So, and this one is called the backstory. So that's one way to write. Say, where did this feeling come from? And that's already a little backstory. And so we can do that game. One way we come up with writing things is from words. So I want to suggest another game, and this one is a scavenger hunt for words. So you go right out of your story for a bit into a spreadsheet. Actually, I'll give you a spreadsheet. Okay. And doesn't have to be a spreadsheet, of course. So, but we're just doing it right like this. I'll give you a spreadsheet, and you can grab a cell in it and write some words so that relate to snowflakes in your mind. Just whatever words come to mind, come up with, okay, here is the link in the chat. It's public, so you should be able to get there. Just go to a cell and you'll see if somebody is already in a cell. So start writing somewhere else. Not yet occupied. And write some words related to snowflakes. Just 5, 6, 1 word. And one more thing I like to do, and I'm going to share my screen for that, so you can, after you play with the sentences a bit, you can look at what I share. I like to take words. That's a follow-up game you can play with children. Once they made some sentences, you can invite them to look at so you can make my screen larger if you want to see, to look at images that go with their words. I just searched for Symmetry right now. I suggest safe search on for children, of course. And then that becomes inspirational. And then they start saying, wait, this image really goes into my story. It sparks another one. So I go for a word, and I pull a word from the list, from my math friends, and I type it here, and go to images, and there is another world opening up. So people can use that as a prompt. And I'd like to invite you to try that as well. Pick a word, maybe the same you used for a sentence, and do an image search for it. And then use one of the images to write another thing about your character.
We're putting them into the spreadsheet, just to let you know.
I put it in the spreadsheet, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's too big, but isn't that amazing?
It is. So how does it, I see people are putting pictures in the spreadsheet. Okay, I need to share that, I guess, in here, so it gets recorded a bit. Okay, let me do that. Let's make that happen. Okay. I think.
Can you see the image that I shared?
I can. We all can, I think.
Okay.
They may travel around. So there is a way to put images, I guess, in cells.
Yeah. I don't know how to do that. Let's try again.
But while we are doing this, okay, Dilip is here. Okay, while you are doing this, so what did it make you think about for your character? We should have done it with slides instead of.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Slides. Okay, I'll make that happen in a moment. But meanwhile, what made it? What came of it for your character when you look at these images? What did you think about for the character?
So for me, it's just the power of imagination, being able to imagine and then do. My oldest is going to NC State, and their motto is "Think and Do," and that's what it reminds me of. It's like, oh, here's a beautiful sea creature. Let's figure out how to cut it out of paper. Let's do that.
So you did two things, and one of them is a discussion about the story, and the second part, when you said, here is a beautiful sea creature, let's do this, that goes into the story. So once you start a document or a paper, however you write, you'll start putting things like that into the story and the notes. The first was writer's notes, and then you keep the story pieces in the story, and it's just all over the place at first, and then it comes together. And Dilip had some qualities there. Are these the qualities of your character, Dilip? Is that what you think about?
Yeah, the floating gave a sense of softness or receptivity, comfort, probing, looking. Being understanding we need to learn more, move to a different area, and that's kind of going back and forth.
So you can play a writing game like that, and now that you met your characters and know a bit about them, we can have and when we have some words that we hunted, we can maybe try and have some interaction. So maybe the characters can meet. If you liked someone else's character, you can invite your character to meet that person. Or maybe they can have a problem. It doesn't have to be conflicts, by the way. Sometimes people say, write the conflict, find the conflict. Doesn't have to be. And actually, this story that I was sharing, Funville Adventures, does not have any conflicts between characters at all. They wrote it experimentally as the whole story without any conflict. Okay, so who wants to have their characters meet? Let's try that. I can split you into pairs, I guess. We have Hiba participating, so but I don't know quite so far, so I'm not sure characters are active yet. And how about Dilip and Ethan? You have to leave? Okay. Okay, keep writing though. Send us your story for Mass Storytelling Day. Thank you for coming. Okay. Well, we can have, bye. we can have all three of our characters meet in one place. Of your characters.
So I have a problem that a whole story leapt into my head as soon as we introduced all the characters. But I don't want to take over the story, but it's just
Okay, first of all, let's all celebrate. However, yay! Second of all, there are infinitely many stories out there. Think about something like Star Wars Extended Universe. There are all this stuff. Think about fan fiction, where people take and write different stories. You can tell 100 stories about the same episode. You are not going to take away anyone's anything. And you can share. It will help other people. There is something called the two-cake theory, because people are like, oh, I have to be original, I have to ask permission, I don't want to take over. I'm going to share the two-cake theory slide that I have. Let's see if I can navigate to it. It has slightly naughty words, which I blanked out. So let me share that. Let me see that. Okay, so it's about the artist comparing the cakes, that cake's better, that's not mine, that's different, but the audience is like, 2 cakes, yay! So more stories. Dilip and Victoria, do you mind if the whole story happens and it features your characters?
Not at all. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah? Go
We'd
for
be
it,
kind of
Kim!
like a sidekick, right?
So here's the story so far. Mark comes home from the camping trip and looks up and can't see the stars. And his desire is so great that he knows he has the power to put stars in the sky if only he had people to help. And so I don't know my character's name, Scissors Woman. I don't know. So she comes along and she sees Mark and it's like, what do you need, Mark? And Mark says, I need stars to put in the sky. Here's what I want them to look like. And so Mark describes the stars and the Scissors Woman says, I can help with that. And she gets out her paper and she gets out her her scissors and she cuts the things that Mark is imagining. And then Ava comes along and says, look at these, but I think we can make these even more beautiful. And so she takes the stars that Scissors Woman cuts and makes them all symmetrical. And they have a huge pile of stars and they need to get them up into the air. And Fred comes. And Fred is able to lift Mark up into the air with all the snowflakes that they've cut, and they put the stars in the sky.
I was thinking, wasn't somebody writing a story about the floating, like that aspect of being able to float,
Yeah,
right?
that was me.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we should have the floating.
The other direction, I'm going down. Maybe we meet in the middle someplace.
Yeah.
And that would satisfy one of the conflicts, because my floating was like looking for a new understanding, and maybe somebody else is meeting me coming up and is bringing their understanding from a different level further down, and I'm further up, perhaps.
So these can be different stories within the same universe. It can be like a series, like a TV show that has different episodes with the same characters. Or they can be independent. They can have different tone and different ideas. What we need to convince children, especially older ones, 5-year-olds don't have this trouble, that there is infinite space for stories. We can make it up. The more the merrier. It's all inspiration. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Let's celebrate that. And see, Dilip right away bounced the idea off of it. Dilip, tell me more about this meeting in the middle. You had this concept.
Well, the idea I have for my character is that they're, to get to the classroom, they're struggling with a math concept, or to deal with just life. They're working with the general vicissitudes of life, right now, the COVID situation, or any number of difficulties. And so, we've checked it out here. Let's move to some other place. Let's see if there's something I can learn there. And that's what my floating idea was, is that not a sense of despair at all, but a sense of, okay, I'm stuck. I want to learn more. Let's go somewhere else. And so looking at Kim's idea of somebody coming up is kind of a nice metaphor, because it's people meeting and interacting and forming relationships. Maybe the person floating up is a little bit confused about fractions, and the person floating down is a little bit confused about negative numbers, and they can meet and form a partnership and work with each other, for example. And then they can continue in their journey, because there's many other things. Neither of them know much about complex numbers, and neither of them knows much about something else. So they move on to work, to explore more frontiers.
So let's celebrate that. Yay! Stories coming. They just happen out of nothing, out of paper and snowflakes and some words, and here they are. The characters are talking and moving, and the whole world is happening. Okay, so here is an example. Different people have very different process. And that's why we keep it so open, like, oh, let's spark an inspiration and see what happens. Like, I'm not telling you, oh, write an introduction or what to do as much. There are a lot of open choices, because what Dilip did was different. So Dilip has a concept. That's a concept for a story, what he wants it to be all about. And Victoria started with a feeling, with that scene, with a feeling, looking at the sky and wanting the stars and there. And Kim started with conversations and interactions with people. They just happened. People moved and talked and did this. So it's more like plot, concept, feeling. You all had different approaches to storytelling between the three of us. And there is more. Sometimes people have this one very vivid scene that they want to write up to. How did this happen? I just see this happening and I want to write a story that has that. Or sometimes people have just a phrase that comes to mind. They wake up with a phrase sometimes. So there are all these different ways. What did you think, Victoria, for interactions? Did anything come to mind?
No, I was kind of a passenger on that one. I was enjoying listening to everybody else's. So
if you feel like a passenger, that's a very cool role, and that's very necessary. People don't talk about it much, but we need listeners and readers for stories. And usually in a group, people take turns playing that crucial role of being a reader. Well, it's not reading yet, it's listening, but that's a role in storytelling. So as you were listening, what parts resonated with you?
let me think about it. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. These are spontaneous things, and sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't. And I really want to make a point that I'm just addressing everyone here. I hope everyone is comfortable. Let me know if not. But we should respect this, that this may not come, any of this, and keep going. A game may be played and inspiration may happen, and then it might not. And then we still have an adventure. Go.
Maria, what you said made me think of something, and that is sometimes in the classroom, we have differentiated classrooms. We have people for whom the material is very easy and some who are struggling. And so it just occurred to me that we could take a break in a classroom So, some people who just don't understand what's going on, other people who've mastered it, and then level the playing field. So let's tell a story. And the benefit of that is subconsciously it liberates you from that tension. How come I don't get it? I'm not a smart person. To level playing field, they're all telling stories and they're building on each other. So it builds camaraderie and brings people back into the class. It's kind of like a literate break. That might be kind of a neat thing to do. And also what it does is it lets go those who really get it sometimes get lazy and they don't really engage anymore. And those who don't get it also don't engage because they're not understanding. And so this brings them together and maybe in the subconscious sparks some new ideas.
I think for me, like the one that I was off thinking about as everybody was speaking was just more of a very simple structural thing that, there's a little child's book and there's different chapters, and maybe each, child has their own chapter, and it all starts from a classroom of with a teacher cutting these, snowflakes. And then from there, after that prelude, you then go off into these different stories about Mark and Ava and, about floating. And there's these different, like each person, each child takes it to their own place.
It really is very much about agency and this ownership, but also the sense of belonging. And there is a big conversation now about inclusion, about people.
Pay or share.
Yes, about people. Every voice that matters. And I have a quote on my wall, and I love that quote. And it's it goes like that. I'll read it. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice. And belonging is having that voice be heard. And what do you think about structurally when you imagine that chapter? It's every voice is heard. Every voice has a little chapter to itself. And we're not comparing. We're not making judgments like that. It's voices that are heard. Different voices who want to say different beautiful things. And what Dilip just typed, like they wake up with an idea. This is not fast. We're going fast. And we're going too fast, okay? We're making some things, but with children, we need to go slower than that. Give each of those games some good time. Invite them to make more snowflakes, maybe as they play the word game. And maybe space it out. So I would imagine something like that over the course of a couple of weeks, actually. Because stories are not fast, and you need to sleep on them, and you need to talk and get inspiration. So it's like one day you play the word game, and you put some words into that growing chapter. You take them home. And maybe you put them on the wall too for everyone to see what people want to share. Maybe they don't want to share everything. And then you go home and next day you meet, or next math circle. I run some math circles online right now. So we do that ongoing thing where, let's continue what we started last week. And say, well, today, you remember you made up your beautiful characters? And some of them have names, and somebody would say, now mine has a name, and I know how they look. And people share a bit more, and it keeps growing. There is a researcher called Feuerstein, was Feuerstein Institute, and he said that change, one of his big things is spend many hours on something, and then the change comes. So that's an idea. Your little chapter will grow over time. Can you imagine people writing a book together like that and maybe having that image? I hope you can do it with your students, with your children, families.
It reminds me a little bit of short stories where different people contribute, and then sometimes there's an overall theme and sometimes there isn't. It could be snippets that everybody contributes to.
Spencer, okay. Thank you. And snippets, and you can literally write, there is a genre of 100-word stories. There is a genre of 6-word stories. Those are difficult. 100 word is difficult too. It's not easy. So Spencer came in and reminded us of time, and I want to be respectful of time, and so we don't have Zoom fatigue, even if it's not Zoom. But I hope I saw inspired faces here, and I love the ideas that you have. It's so touching. Thank you for sharing the inspiration. Before we go, I want to ask, so this is very experimental to me. I just started doing this very recently. What one idea comes to mind? Okay, if it comes tomorrow, please email. But if it comes today, what would you do? And you shared already, thank you, quite a lot. But before we go, what can we do to improve this process? Like, if you were to run something based on this with your children, or maybe with other teachers, another teacher workshop, what can we do even better to inspire people, maybe to help people, maybe to show something else? So let's talk shop. We did some magic stuff. Let's talk shop now.
I agree having slides instead of, or in addition to the spreadsheet would be helpful. It was fun to see everyone, and then like if we could put some pictures on a slide and then go back and forth and see what the other people had done. I think that would be fun.
Think through the logistics. Secretly, I made up this activity. I didn't make it up. I used it before with students, but I didn't think of it before. And then I'm like, oh, I should do this, but I didn't prepare. So that was improvisational. And and then there is no logistics. Good deal. Thank you. We'll do that. Okay.
But I think I might do something like this, especially if my class is meeting online. I teach a middle school math class for homeschool students, and that means that we only get to do the fun parts of math and not the non-fun parts of math. And so
just the good things.
Yeah, just the good things. No multiplying decimals. And so I think I could have these 7th and 8th graders, and they're mostly boys, get together and write a story. It would be very interesting.
I am sure it will. And if you tell them about the Math Storytelling Day, maybe they can celebrate together, submit something, send it to the world. It's September 25th. I just shared. It's a holiday. So it's in those, little holidays, international registers, whatever.
Is it an international? Is it? Can you tell us some background? What's the history of the day, and is it always the same September 25th, or is it like the third Thursday or something?
Okay. No, it's always on September 25th. It's so the holiday was inspired by a storytelling game, and the storytelling game was the following: design a holiday. Well, imagine when you build a world, right? The world has its own everything, food and habits and everything. You can design a holiday. But this one was very specific. The person writing this game said, on on Martin Luther King Day, we go and do community activities. That's how you celebrate that birthday. MLK's birthday, you celebrate by going and doing community service. That's what it's done, and we assume he would approve were he alive today. If you could leave a legacy or just tell everyone, hey, on my birthday, do this, what would you do? What would you want people do? So that's the history of the holiday. It came from a writing game, from a creative game a while ago, but it took off. It's a shared birthday of two math friends. Okay. So, and now it's a holiday that we can celebrate. Okay. So, if you create some funvillians specifically, Sasha will be very happy to talk to your students about that. She does wonderful outreach. Sasha Fratkin, who is one of the writers of Funville, and she can make an appearance, I'm sure, or make things happen. Okay. So thank you for coming, and thank you for the inspiration. That was Brianna says. Hi, Brianna. It was beautiful. I loved it. Thank you. You stay wonderful, okay? And write stories.